Tonight's big stories. ABS-CBN announces a joint venture with Prime Media Holdings Incorporated, which is led by House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Prime Media will have a controlling 51% stake in the new company, while ABS-CBN's stake is at 49%. We'll discuss this move further with veteran market analyst Jonathan Ravelas later on in the program.
Social Welfare Department has issued a cease and desist order against a private orphanage in Quezon City after it allegedly violated laws against child abuse, exploitation, and discrimination. About 149 children were rescued from the orphanage and have since been moved to DSWD facilities.
And the Social Welfare Department is pushing ahead with its plan to subsidize food for the poorest of the poor. Instead of food stubs, the DSWD is going the high-tech route by coursing the ayuda through digital cards. So parang e-foods. That and more later on.
Welcome to the show. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Chicky Verhel.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Girls, big news today. The joint venture of ABS-CBN with Prime Holdings. Recall that I think a few months back, hindi natuloy yung investment dapat ng
Sa
TV5 and ABS-CBN. Sean, ano ba difference nung joint venture dito
Actually,
sa investment?
Sean, bago ka magsimula, yung minessage mo dito sa GC, I'm gonna read it to them, Sabi mo, so more of a marriage and this one is just joint custody. Parang okay yun eh. Parang mas malinaw.
Mas simple ba?
Oo, mas
Ganun kasi
malinaw.
yung investment deal kasi may share swapping yun, di ba? So walang pera na mag-change hands between TV5 and ABS-CBN, pero makakakuha ng shares ang ABS-CBN into TV5. Ang kapalit doon ay shares naman ng Signal into Sky Cable. So,
Pero wala na yon.
wala na yon, di ba?
Oo.
Na-scrap na yon at iniwanan na yon. So, I guess medyo nagulat tayong lahat kasi wala namang warning na biglang, may bagong deal pala ang ABS-CBN, who has now, let's just clarify, sinabi na nila na content creator na lang sila ngayon. Hindi na nga daw sila broadcasting channel tulad ng dati, pero itong Prime Holdings ay meron silang franchise from Congress.
Well, it is worth to note that Prime Holdings is owned by House Speaker Martin Romualdez. House Speaker Martin Romualdez also voted against the renewal of the franchise of ABS-CBN back in 2020. And this joint venture was approved by ABS-CBN's board of directors on Tuesday. The two companies will apply with the SEC to incorporate the new company with an initial capital stock of 100 million shares, valued at 1 peso apiece. ABS-CBN will have a minority stake in the venture, while Prime Media will be the majority stakeholder. The new company that will emerge from this partnership will supply content and programs to broadcasters and third-party platforms. Kasama kaya tayo dyan? Yun ang tanong. Well, sigurado kasama dyan the Philippine Collective Media Corporation.
That's right. So, of course, being listed firms, both ABS-CBN and Prime. And after that bit of news, ABS-CBN shares climbed 5.3%, closing at 7 pesos and 34 pesos per share today. And the share price of Prime Media Holdings, on the other hand, it dropped 6.4% this trading day to close at 2 pesos and 69 centavos a share. O, di ba? Weird. Hindi nagre-reflect sa market yung sentiments. Anyway, kausapin natin mamaya ang ating analyst.
Kanina, kukwento ko lang konti kasi syempre kilala ko yung mga taga-ABS-CBN. Nagulat sila. The employees didn't know that this was going to happen. They found out from the Inquirer who broke the story. And after the GA, sinabi parang there's an insider from Philippine Star or there's an official that confirmed that all of the employees of DZMM Teleradyo, which will cease operations, will be laid off.
June 30 yun.
So,
That's right.
kinamusta ko yung
Naglabas na rin sila ng yung NUJP chapter nga nila. Naglabas na rin ng statement. Kakakita ko lang before broadcast sa Twitter. So, nasa online na ngayon ang statement. Pati, of course, ang statement ng ABS-CBN tungkol sa matter. Sabi naman ng kumpanya, since kapos na sila sa pera, sa teleradyo, isasara na lang daw nila ito.
Pero yun nga lang, yung sinasabi nga dito, yung benefits ng employees, those who are employed with Teleradyo, will be transferred daw. Their contract will be transferred to other platforms. So hopefully that will remain protected because we know that these employees did stay with ABS-CBN for 3 years. And we hope that is taken into consideration, as well as press freedom. That's also a very important issue to
Now
talk
they only
about.
have 1 month to look for jobs if they lose their jobs. So some of them will lose their jobs, of course.
Medyo mahaba-haba pa itong usapan na to, pero
This is
Sean,
only the beginning, di ba?
sa business side of things,
Ito nga, so itong venture na to, no, it comes on the back of ABS-CBN's announcement that Teleradyo will cease operations on June 30. So yun yung unang announcement eh. Okay, wala nang Teleradyo after end June, di ba? 3 years after the shutdown, today lang na-announce. So, ito nga, napag-usapan na natin yung rason dyan. No choice na raw si ABS-CBN kasi nga hindi na nila masustain, no, yung losses from the loss of their franchise. Of course, itong joint venture daw, it provides pa rin an opportunity for the employees to find new jobs with another.
well, NUJP also requested for, they hope that the ABS-CBN newsroom will remain to be independent and to tell only the truth. I'm sure we have a lot more to dig into that, but as you mentioned, this is just the start of it. Let's talk more about this joint
Yep.
venture.
Let's do that, Gretchen. Let's talk more about this joint venture with veteran stock market analyst Jonathan Ravelas. He is the managing director at eManagement for Business and Marketing Services. Welcome to the big story.
Good evening.
Hi, Jonas. Jonas, nagulat ka rin ba? Just like us. And can you tell us about, the bipolar performance of both ABS and Prim shares today? Of course, we already talked about it. Prim down 6.3%. ABS shares closing on the green or in the green, 5.3% up. Bakit ganon?
Oh, well, basically, typically, since it's a joint venture and the big player will be the prime media, no? So typically sila yung greenhorn and will take the biggest share starting off in the media, no? They normally take the hit. Just like saying the acquirer actually gets the hit and the one being bought actually the one that gains. Diba? So I think despite my own surprise, this could be a positive engagement for both, no? Again, this could be hopefully it will allay the fears about press freedom, no? I think we will probably try to see that being tested, no? But at the same time, this will actually put Prime Media subsidiaries into a nationwide scale, no? So again, this is something that in the past years we've seen that most of our networks are Luzon based, no? So this time we're probably going to see something that will try to balance content between the Visayas, Mindanao, and eventually where Luzon is.
Right, Jonas, what about this joint venture? As we were talking about earlier in the program, iba ito, no? Doon sa initial deal that was scrapped, that deal between, of course, TV5 and ABS-CBN, which was an investment deal. Can you talk us through, like, kumbaga, quote-unquote, mas safe ba itong deal from the prying eyes of
Safe to invest
our
in ba yan?
lawmakers? Oo, safe investment ba ito?
Oh, well, I think what makes the big difference in TV5 because they're already existing and you already have a market share. So you both are considered big players in the business. So it's like saying we want another entrant into the broadcasting business. So just to probably provide more competition. So I think that's where the difference compared to the previous one. Of course, if we were to look at it from an investment perspective, the previous engagement would have been a very good partnership. No, you have good content, you have the existing network. Then it's like just changing jobs, and you can eventually roll out. I think the difference today is. This is going to be something different.
Well, wait, how the share shot up today, is that the normal thing after big announcements like these, or is it irregular to see it, shoot up that high?
Well, basically, the high of ABS-CBN was just 8 pesos. So at 7.34, coming to just an increase of 0.37 is quite normal, no? Especially when you're the one sort of being acquired, no? But in terms of prime, that's a typical when you're the acquirer. No? So since they're putting up the joint venture, it just shows that there's still a premium on the ABS-CBN. So they will still play a major role. And this is what some investors are looking at. No? How things will shape up in the coming months, we don't know what they'll do. No?
Mr. Rivera,
Especially the driver,
Yes.
the driver being the new player. No?
See, Gretchen earlier mentioned that House Speaker Martin Romualdez owns Prime Media. Can you give us a primer about the state of this firm? That's the first question. And next is, what moves can we expect from this joint venture?
Well, basically, Prime Media, I think, started around 2007, and they eventually created a radio station, and eventually they have a station in Tacloban, no? So eventually, they have very little scope in terms of their franchise, no? But with this deal, this can actually, give them a very long mileage. And since they also have radio frequencies for radio, then it might eventually be good for the employees if they take this new deal, no?
Do you think
So
that
hopefully
somehow
that could
compensates?
happen, no?
Do you think that compensates for how much ABS-CBN has downsized over the past years, with the other channels not being present anymore, Channel 2, Channel 23? What would be the effect on, or how big can this company be, this joint venture be?
Well, basically, it has a lot of potentials, no? In the sense that at this point in time, given the loss of the network, people now have a different way of gathering information, no? Dati, there were only two places to go, either your Kapuso or Kapamilya, no? So eventually now, there are a lot of places to choose. So it's a question now of really trying to look at the bottom line, no? I guess what we've seen how two companies, no, ABS-CBN and eventually the GMA network, no. When we look at quality films, people recall of what they made, then you think of ABS-CBN, but it comes with a cost. Unlike GMA7, they're profitable, but again, the value that is being generated by their previous films is not as a brand equity compared to what we see in ABS.
Mr. Jonathan, may tanong ka lang,
It's only now that
may effect po ba sa TV5 shares? Tumas din ba yung amin? Hindi mo nababanggit kapatid
Hindi tayo
kami.
listed.
Sama natin sa equation.
Tumaas ba?
Okay, I think at this point in time, you have now a share. As I said, in the
Okay,
previous
sige.
deal between ABS and TV5, you're already both existing players. Diba? You're nationwide, so to speak. But if you compare Prime Media and where they are, they're just based in Tacloban. They're a small player. So, getting into the game will not make a dent between GMA7, TV5, and the others. So, he's going to be the new kid on the block. The question is, will the magic of ABS-CBN help drive this story forward? Diba? I mean, it's nice to think about you're partnered with ABS. It's a question of execution, what they can do. Diba? So there's a
Clear.
big difference between how they managed it before and how the new owners will manage it.
Reality versus expectation. Thank you for joining us,
Yeah.
veteran stock market analyst Jonathan Ravelas.
Right, so full disclosure, we of course spent all afternoon trying to reach out to both parties for to hear their sides, but I think they're keeping mum for now.
early pa?
Too early pa, I think, to talk. So maybe tomorrow we can see what the NTC thinks of this deal and what they're going to do about it, if they will move on it, and maybe also of those who voted against the franchise renewal of ABS.
That would be
We're now,
interesting to hear.
we're now part
Nanawagan
of the
on air. Baka bukas pwede namin kayo makausap.
Well,
Bukas
stay
po kami
tuned.
dito.
Stay tuned for that on the big story tomorrow. What's next for the Manila Central Post Office after the huge fire destroyed the historic building? We'll discuss that when we return. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Let's move on, Gretchen, Sean, to the Manila Central Post Office fire. Oh, there are calls, or there have been calls since yesterday
Oh my God.
siya
Siyempre,
maaga ng
non-stop.
restoration.
I think for
Oo.
once, we are all united as a nation in our sadness over the demise of this building. And of course,
Oo.
everyone is willing to pitch in from senators, lawmakers. They're even thinking about tapping the private sector in exchange for tax deductibles.
Oh.
Donate na lang daw for
Pero
the
yung
rest
problema
of it.
kasi too late na to restore what was lost eh.
Sana
100%
pinrevent na lang.
Anyway, hopefully we do that not just to this building but also to the other heritage buildings. We do something about it.
Pero good thing kasi
Prevent it.
important cultural property yun, di ba? So they're entitled naman to the funds.
Right. And
of,
you,
DBM.
again, yung amount that we have been talking about, 300 million pesos
At
in
least.
damage, right?
Oo.
In damage. Pero kung papatayuin natin yun, hindi lang 300 million pesos yun for sure.
Especially
Right?
now.
Especially
this time.
Oh, eto na nga, girls. According to Postmaster General and CEO Luis Carlos, they plan on hiring a structural engineer to determine how the restoration will go. The National Historical Commission of the Philippines, meanwhile, maintained that the National Historical Landmark can potentially be restored to its former glory. However, the NHCP admits that the rehabilitation will incur substantial expenses. Sabi nga ni Sean kanina, the estimated cost of the damages caused by the fire to the Manila Central Post Office building is already at around 300 million pesos. 300 to 500 million pesos actually. The amount of money to be received from insurance for the building's rehabilitation is still being determined. Senators, meanwhile, have promised to seek funds to rebuild the damaged structure.
At the moment, they mentioned something like 300 to 500. Pero it's very hard to pick that number kasi on the ground right now, the GSIS people are here already. And the appraising company is already also here.
In other news, the DSWD has shut down an orphanage in Quezon City for allegedly failing to meet standards. The department issued a cease and desist order against Gentle Hands Orphanage over a series of violations. Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian said he personally visited the establishment last week. Among the lapses he saw include improper hygiene and not enough fire exits. Gatchalian said the orphanage also lacked enough social workers and was overpopulated. The DSW Secretary said the facility only has a capacity to take care of 80 children, but around 149 kids were reportedly staying there.
If I'm not mistaken, kaya ayaw ko papasukin, they only had 5 kasambahays who could barely answer. But you were running 149. So, it's a recipe for disaster.
Siyempre, ang tanong lahat ng tao ngayon, no? Nasaan na at kamusta na ang mga bata? We have Mon Gualvez joining us for updates. Mon, where and how are the children doing?
Sean, for the meantime, the kids will be brought to the different DSWD facilities. The management of Gentle Hands had been cooperative with the process and was willing to turn over custody of the children. Although initially they were hoping to have the chance to settle first the matter before it came to the point of turning over the children. The DSWD is also looking into some cases of disruptive children that came from Gentle Hands. Sean?
That's good to know, and thanks for that, Mon.
Apart from children's welfare, the DSWD is also busy with its targeted Ayuda program. Right now, the department is planning to hand out digital food stamps. Alam mo ba kung ano yun?
Yes, sa States uso
I wonder
yun
how that will...
Marami silang program.
Paano yun? Paano yun?
So, kunyari,
Sa phone?
kulang-kulang yung kinikita mo, di ba?
Oo.
So, yung
In this
digital
case,
is gagawin lang
8,000
digital.
per
Yeah.
month.
Sa States kasi dati, may actual food stamps ka. So, para siyang mga gift certificates na pwede mong gamitin sa mga partner establishments to buy. So, hindi ka bibigyan ng pera kasi alam naman natin, kung hawak mo na yung pera, mahirap na i-liquidate. Kung
Pero
saan
dapat,
mo
dapat
yan.
nga may cellphone ka.
Kung
kasi
digital
digital.
food stamps, I'm assuming
Hindi,
dapat
inisip ko
meron
kasi
kang...
pag wala kang pera, di wala kang cellphone. Paano yun?
Uy, huwag ka, Gretchen. Halos
sorry.
maraming
Di
tao
ba?
ngayon na may cellphone. Dahil kulang-kulang tayo sa pera. Priority ang cellphone. So
Oo nga
ito
naman.
ano bang pwede nating i-expect from this food stamp initiative? Well, the DSWD hopes to distribute this digital food stamps to some 1 million families under their Listahanan
yeah.
3 list. Beneficiaries are set to receive 3,000 pesos worth of food items a month. The project is set for pilot implementation from July to December this year, covering families in northern Luzon, in Mimaropa, Metro Manila, the Bangsamoro region, and the Caraga region. Targeted beneficiaries include low-income families, those in hazard and conflict-prone areas, and those in isolated communities.
Ang argumento kasi ngayon, di ba, pag gutom ang isang individual, hindi siya makaparticipate, hindi siya makatrabaho. So kung hindi siya makapagtrabaho, hindi siya produktibong mamamayan ng ating bansa. So ang gagawin natin dito, we will supplement the family's intake.
Oo, para hindi na maramdaman yung gutom and they can work. Paano naman kaya magagamit itong mga digital food stamps na ito? Let's bring in Marisol Halili to answer that. Mase, go ahead.
Chicky, it's quite easy. Think of it as a reloadable card. So that's 3,000 pesos loaded into accounts per month. Now, here's what the beneficiaries should take note of. You can only use these digital cards in DSWD partner stores. Hindi ito pwedeng ipapalit sa cash. Pwede ka lang pumili sa particular food groups where you can use these digital cards. Now, as to the budget, we're expecting about $3 million from the Asian Development Bank for the pilot implementation of this project. Chicky?
Thank you for that, Mase. Up next, girls, the 60-day suspension against Congressman Arnie Teves has ended. But what happens next? That and other stories when we return. Keep it here on One News.
You're still watching the big story here on One News. So, what else do we have tonight, Gretch?
What else, Gretch?
Sa Senado, mukhang nagkainitan na naman ng ulo si Senator Bato de la Rosa and Senator Jinggoy Estrada. Earlier
Nangyari.
today, the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs cited in contempt dismissed Police Master Sergeant Rodolfo Mayo Jr. and his superior, Lieutenant Colonel Arnulfo Ibanez, over the 6.7 billion peso Shabu haul in Manila last year. So hindi silang dalawa against these policemen. Senator Raffy Tulfo filed the motion to have Ibanez cited in contempt for supposedly lying through his teeth and refusing to disclose who is behind the drug haul. During the same hearing, Senator Jinggoy Estrada also moved to cite in contempt 5 more cops from Calabarzon for refusing to share information of the arrest of Mayo in Bambang. Flashed on the screen are the police officers cited for contempt. Senators tried to get more information from the cops. However, they denied the allegation and said that they arrested Mayo's alleged accomplice, Nay Atadero, at the WPD lending. This infuriated senators. Let's hear what they had to say.
Ganun na ang inyong ugali ninyo. Gagamitin niyo ang korte. Masyado kayong ginagamit ang legal para umiwas sa katotohanan. Ay, nako. Not in this committee, ha? Ba't masisira ba ang kaso ninyo sa korte? Kaya Tadero, kung magsabi ka ng totoo dito?
Until you tell us the truth before this committee, I assure you, hindi kayo makakalabas. We only have 1 week left. After this week, 1 linggo na lang kami magsisesyon. And I will advise the chair, being a veteran lawmaker here, not to conduct any hearing unless you tell the truth. Mapupulo kayo, magre-recess na kami.
You guys also have to see Bato on YouTube, ha? Yung nagbe-beg siya na luluhod daw siya. Luluhod ako sa inyo, basta magsalita lang kayo para sa taong bayan. Pero guys,
Sinubukan na niya lahat, Chiki.
Oo.
Wala pa rin gumagana.
punta naman tayo sa House of Representatives. The 60-day suspension of Congressman Arnie Teves is finally up. So does this mean that he will be allowed back in Congress? Well, not really, no? According to Committee Chairman Filimon Espares, they have sent a letter to Teves regarding the enforcement of his 60-day suspension. The Congressman responded after 4 days, but the contents of his response were deemed confidential and cannot be disclosed by the committee. The committee agreed to convene again on the upcoming Monday, May 29, or this Monday, to discuss the recommended actions against Teves. Under the House rules, he could potentially face suspension or even more severe expulsion or removal from the House of Representatives. This is especially concerning given that Teves previously applied for political asylum in Timor-Leste, a matter that was heavily criticized by fellow congressmen.
Absent pa rin siya dito sa House at saka unauthorized yung absence na yun. Okay, so kung umuwi siya dito, baka wala nang gagawin ang ating committee.
Meron po talagang evidence na political asylum nag-apply siya sa Timor-Leste, no? And on that basis, again, jurisdiction na po ng Committee on Ethics yun.
Hi girls, ang dami na natin pinag-usapan, pero meron pa. Before we
Let's
go,
not forget.
Let's not forget, meron pa. Ito guys, babantayan natin because something is up and that is Super Typhoon Mawar. So for now, the Super Typhoon is still outside the Philippine area of responsibility, some 2,300 kilometers east of the Visayas. And while the cyclone is still not directly affecting the country, it is still best to be prepared. It is, after all, a super typhoon, moving pretty fast at 15 kilometers per hour and packing wind speeds of up to 230 kilometers per hour. Currently, it is the southwesterly wind flow that is bringing cloudy skies and rains to some parts of the country, including Batanes, the Babuyan Islands, Metro Manila, and Palawan. So, ang bilis nung hangin ng bagyo. Ang lakas nun, 230 kilometers per hour. More than twice ng speed limit.
Di ba? Isipin mo,
Highway.
kung hindi mo maintindihan, isipin mo yung speed ng kotse.
Yes.
Oo, ganun
Well, we
lang yun.
better get ready for that because that will happen on the weekend, I believe.
Yes, pero
Pero walang
Friday
landfall,
daw,
di ba?
papasok.
yung maganda dyan, no, sobrang, I think, bida today rin si DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian. Sinabi nga niya na naghahanda na sila ng food packs for like
Yeah.
50,000 families. These are going up north to the Cagayan Valley region and the Ilocos region. And then the PCG is also preparing, ang busy na rin yung PCG ngayon, dami nilang ginagawa. But they're also preparing food packs to distribute to evacuation
Well, at
centers.
least we have foresight now. It's
Yeah.
way better.
Kudos and good luck.
Look who's optimistic tonight. I'm gonna end it there. That's it from us, from the big story tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
This has been the big story. Thank you and good night.